In this episode, we are going to be discussing the ego and how it can affect us spiritually. Like, you need a fucking handbook on how that can happen when we see so many disasters on social media and talk to people in our personal lives that are spiritual and see how far up their own ass they are. And we are susceptible to that. Whether you are on the lighter side of the spiritual spectrum or more in the shadows, like some of us, I think it's good to try to just find your balance within both, not find an equal balance. Like, I have to be completely this spectrum of gray. I personally disagree with that. But one thing that I know for sure is with shadow work and healing myself, I have been able to dissect where my ego is healthy and where it is susceptible to not be healthy, and then also understanding that we do need to nourish it. And even if you nourish your diet with a healthy ego of like lifestyle and goals and all this other stuff, you can still become so addicted to that it becomes not only your personality trait, but it starts bleeding over into your character, and then you start judging other people because, well, I can do it, what's your excuse? I've definitely struggled with being too much of tie up your bootstraps, and for me that probably was just more of a nature sort of thing, being an older millennial after all. But being able to fine tune that in your personal life as well as your spiritual life is really, really important for me, because not only does it help us stay accountable, it helps you stay free with being accountable. But also, to that aspect, you have to know with accountability that you can manipulate people very, very easily. You can lie when you want to because you're so fucking honest about everything else. And that's the thing that we have to keep in check with our ego, that you have power, but that can be really abused. Someone like myself who just has a small platform here on different channels, I have that ability. I see it from other practitioners, and I can see transparency, and I can see when people are 90% transparent, they're bullshitting a little bit. All of us have done something like that, within our lives. But my point in that is ego can start making you feel very drunk with your own convictions to the point where you're right. And within spirituality, that is fucking dangerous, because there are so many people that can't relate to some of us who are free with ourselves spiritually, that are trying to become that, but they're dealing with trauma. I don't have that issue. I'm very, very lucky in that area. But that doesn't mean that the standard for what I think is appropriate in terms of being a bit more self-sufficient and not too clinging onto other people who can help you spiritually. So that might be distasteful for me, but for somebody else, they might not know. They're searching for help, right? And that is an opportunity for, you as a practitioner, if you're in that situation, to make sure you don't say anything, even if you're well-meaning, to indoctrinate somebody. I'm not afraid of doing that, but the thing is you can be so convinced because your path is right for you that it should be right for other people. And I see this within the left-hand path community for sure. Ego is rampant. So I want to start in the shadows with that. We're not going to just talk smack on people who are on the light side, because I think that's kind of silly too. But within the left-hand path, I've noticed people get very, very defensive. And a lot of people on this path, not everybody, are broken. A lot of us have gone through a lot of abuse. We've had to deal with, terrible, toxic people in our environment. Some of us became also terrible, toxic people. All these other factors play into one's psychology. But we have to be okay with ourselves being fucked up in order to understand why other people are fucked up. And when you do that, you break those kind of cages down, and then you can scatter out all of the pieces and go, okay, it's okay that I fucked up. It really is. It's not, but it's okay. So now we have to look at other people. You know what I mean? And in the left-hand path, I see too many people getting so defensive and gatekeeping, and they're getting used to their power, it seems, but they don't know how to manage it. And sometimes those are just lessons for those practitioners, and I don't understand why people don't see that at this point. When you have like somebody who, for instance, if I share the same matron as somebody, like Hecate is my matron, I can tell if somebody else is kind of like using her and like, well, I'm just going to sick Hecate on this person and that person also works with her. That's probably a lesson for two people to learn, like shoot themselves in the ass, and maybe you'll learn something from that, because it's pretty foolish. And when I see people do that, it reminds me of people like growing up that I've been around. I've seen these similar behavioral patterns growing up in just kind of like a high violent environment in terms of the city I grew up in and household, to be like, in all seriousness. I'm not even like, oh, and that too, like that was even worse than that. But I see people who, these broken down kids who join gangs by the time they're like 11, 12, and they're just like all fronting, right? Like, yeah, all this other stuff. But the people who have really lived that life and they don't glamorize it, they're more calm, because it takes a lot of pain to make somebody really like kind and calm sometimes, right? So I'm a really kind person. Like, I'm really generous and I'm really kind and I'm nice until people, now these days, if people fuck with me, I can sense that really quickly, and I don't have time or energy. But my point is when people haven't been through a lot, they tend to do that sort of dance, that puffed up sort of, I'm of this, I'm of that, and you can see right through it. Like, they might have some power because, like, instance, for anybody who watches like UFC fights, you see so much ego. Those people are disciplined in certain areas, but it doesn't compensate for their lack of mental fortitude, and that's, they're just as fucked up as people that don't train, 4 times a day, blah blah blah. But they're so in denial because they feel entitled to that. Like, well, no, I'm at the top of this. I do this, and I'm entitled to that. So you have to do what I say. And that's just going to make you self-destruct. And there are lessons in that. I see that in the occult community, where people start getting into really, really pathetic arguments. I'm not talking about people like bullying you and harassing you and causing serious damage. I mean people just like going out of their way to find a fucking problem. That right there is a huge red flag for me. And that's easy to navigate for me, though. You have to be silent with your power and handle it. It's the difference between getting in an altercation with somebody and showing them like, oh, come on, motherfucker, let's go. And then just getting in and just pop, get over with and walk away, and then not think about it, not feed off of it, not care about it. You had to go take care of business because somebody was threatening you or hurting somebody you care about, or innocent bystander, whatever it is. You don't go and start doing this dance. All you're going to do is exhaust yourself physically, and you're going to leave yourself vulnerable to the other person, who could be a lot more, proficient in self-defense than you are, or they just have a lot more street smarts. So those are a lot of factions that add up, and people don't realize that when you are silent with your power. It's because the loudest motherfucker in the room is usually the one that has to prove the most. So always remember that. As much as I'm a loudmouth and you guys see me and I'm cussing and I do this, I am a quiet fucking bitch when it comes to being around people that are smarter than me, because I want to learn. I also am quiet around new people because I want to feel their energy and how they treat me. So I stay pretty neutral, and that's a part of my ego. I used to be really, really like dependent on that in my 20s with new people, because I had severe trust issues. So I would almost act like and it's kind of fake to an extent, like, but I would act like a little bit dumber and a little bit kinder and kind of, act smaller than I really am, just to get a feel of how people will treat you, because you'll see right away if people are going to try to take advantage of that, or if they're going to see past it. I like that shit the most. I can super chime in with people who can see that, because they've done it too, or they understand. But with those sorts of people, you just feel their energy right away. So now that I'm more mature and I'm grown and I've had a lot of life experience, I don't have to do that. I don't play mental games with people. It's not that I was trying to play mental games with people. I was trying to just defend myself, because I've been fucked over umpteenth times a day forever, and I'm like depleted of giving a shit about anybody, like outside of my circle. And I think that's okay. My point in that is that became an issue for me because it was my ego, you know what I mean? And I knew that I was really proficient, like at work and this part of my life and this and that, but you don't want to start being on pissing on the fire hydrant. Fuck the fire hydrant. Just whatever. Just stand there and just take a nap. That's what I think. Just take a nap. It's my fire hydrant, man. I was here first. You want it that bad? Cool. All right, we'll see. It's you can't have this exhaustion. So with spirituality, You see that. People know everything. They have the answers to everything. People in the light, it's like, oh, I would never do anything dark. It's like, no, yeah, you would. I can guarantee that because people tell me that shit consistently enough. And you know what my response is? Somebody hurts your child or hurts you or your family in a sinister way. Who the fuck are you going to call? Gaia? Like Gaia's, you know, and I'm not, no diss to Mama Earth, but she's got obviously a fucking dark side to her. But who are these people going to call? They're going to call you and me and say, hey, can you help me? I feel helpless. This person disempowered me, or this person did sinister things. They're not going to turn to God. None of these fuckers do. Because God allows that shit to happen in the first place because people are under this haze. Like, if I just play by the rules and I'm compliant, I'll have everything handed to me and I'll have all these blessings. Bitch, you are already blessed. Look what you got. But we have this negative mindset because of feeling entitled and our ego and stuff, right? And then we don't want to admit it. That's where the ego comes in, is we don't want to admit it. We're like, no, I got it hard. We do have it hard. We also have it pretty good, you know? And you don't have to lean on that because that's ego too, where people are like, I'm so self-righteous and I wake up every day with so much gratitude. No, you don't. The fuck you do. I wake up, I have a beautiful life, and I wake up and I'm like, fuck, man, I got all this shit I got to do, but I have to work at that to not have that mindset. It takes practice and patience and accountability, and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, Amber, you know better than this, man. Talk to yourself. Seriously, you can hold yourself accountable because I know a lot of you are that person for everybody. I was that person. Now I'm doing it just on the internet, but I got sick and tired of being that person for people. You know, being the one on their soapbox trying to like lift people up and do this, you just drain yourself. And then you become entitled and angry when people don't take your advice when you are right. You know, that's the thing. When you have gone through shit and you have sorted out all of the garbage and you can, you know, paint a picture for other people so they can have a map to help them out along the way. Those motherfuckers don't want help to navigate that rough journey. They want your ass to carry them like a damsel in distress. And they want you to fucking deal with all the crap that nature has to offer. That's not what this is. And as a result to that too, people can get into like this huge guru mentality. And that is the last thing that I want to do. Because people gravitate toward me and it's always been a thing. And I'm like, fuck this, man. I got to be, it is very important for me to be completely honest about all of the dumb shit that I've done so people can see I'm not going to be one of these people on this platform that starts acting like I have, you know, no. We're human beings and a lot of us are broken down and a lot of us are really blind because of society, all this shit that we're bantering over. We don't have time and quiet and peace to sit down, shut up and just clear your head. Because the most amazing epiphanies that I've had given to myself is when I am quiet and when I am not exhausting myself on other people. Because not only am I exhausting my energy, but then I am expecting an input from them like, well, aren't you going to do what you know, I don't want that. That's ego. My ego is fed with humiliation and strength. And when I may say, excuse me, I didn't mean humiliation, I meant humility. My ego is just fed with like a sense of humility and strength and just perseverance, right? But at the same time, it's also being understanding and reminding myself that as much as I have really adopted a lot of discipline in my life, I still don't like doing a lot of this shit every fucking day. I still bitch and complain to myself and I have to give myself a small amount of space to do that. And then I got to get up and get it done because I know how I feel. You know, I talked to my kids about that yesterday. I know I talk about like, look, this is just, you guys get to hear shit while it's happening in my life. And it's like, I'm in this big process. So I'm sorry. But I talked to my kids the other day because they train twice a day. They train and then they rest and they eat. You know, they're martial artists. They don't have their club. I talk about this all the time. And they have their goals that are consistent, you know, with. So like right now they'll go do cardio and stuff, but then they have the smaller children so I can have an opportunity to get some stuff done for an hour and a half, right? And then it's all good. So what happened was recently is, you know, they come back in like 45 minutes after being outside and I'm trying to film. And obviously if there's something wrong, I don't care. Like I could stop this anytime, but they're just chilling and laughing and stuff. And I had to have a talk with them and I was kind of annoyed because it's been consistent, right? And I say this with peace and love and grace and all that stuff. So I'm just like, hey, you guys, like, I don't want my goals to be interfered with because you're not wanting to, work on your goals when I'm not hovered over you. Because as a parent of a young adult and then one that's, 17, you have to still be, present for your kids every day, but at the same time, you have to have them adjust to taking their own accountability. So I'm at that point where I'm like very confident, like, hey, I do this 6 to 7 days a week. I get all of my goals done. I've been setting an example, things that you have taught me, I have been proficient at, and you are really impressed with my progress because they're teachers. What are you doing? Now I am surpassing you in that discipline for the thing that you taught me. So now you need to get back to that level. And if I surpass you again, it would only be to have you look up to something, have a goal in the meantime until we can, there's, the economy is fucking crashing. You guys know this. It's not good. It sounds cool, but no, like most people here, they skip a meal every day, including my husband and I. That's where we are right now. Dishwashing pods are $60 a pack in some stores in Australia for this fucking things that you put in the dishwasher. Like, that's where we are. So we got to be level-headed right now. I'm not going to crumble over this. Fuck this system. I refuse to. I will make my own things. I'm going to navigate this because I'm not going to feel helpless and powerless. So because of this, the kids club collapsed because the owner couldn't afford to keep it running. People couldn't afford tuition. We were doing fine with that, but it's like, he had to raise the tuition for it too, and because all the the facility, the gas and the lighting and all all of this shit. It's so dumb. So that's what's happening right now. And as a result, it's like, okay, guys, look, your grandmaster is not available right now. And you just put in 6 years worth of work into this and you're not ready to quit. They want this. This is the thing. This is their goal. This isn't my goal to live through them. If it wasn't, I would be like, cool, let's figure out what's going to give you that same fire that you had, because you need that. I don't give a shit who says that you don't. You need it. I have to do the things that I do, like working on content and all my goals, because I need it. I mentally and emotionally need that for myself. And it's not in this sense anymore where I'm running away from myself and trying to climb up some, I don't say status ladder, because I didn't care about that, but I cared about earning what I did. I cared about, I refused to call myself a chef if I'm just going to work in a B&B and serve like 10 people in the morning and make like shit that everybody can make at home. And I'm also not going to consider myself a chef if I'm just doing things like molecular gastronomy and all of this high level stuff, but I'm not also in the hell pit in restaurants. I'm very happy that I made that decision for myself, but at the same time, during that process, I was becoming very mentally toxic with it, because you're in a high stressful environment and you're with other people that are very stressed out, and everybody's getting underpaid and everybody's good at what they do, and their conflicts really run high. And if anything, I'll say with ego, working in kitchens, that is the worst place and best place, if you want to look at it this way, to get a taste of what egomania is like. Because I swear, people can be so full of themselves. They are like unapologetic. They will tell you the sky is red, and they will tell you you're wrong and deserve to be beheaded for fucking believing that it's blue. And those are my favorite type of people, because you see their vulnerabilities, and here's where my ego comes in. It's like, oh, okay, so you're good at this one thing, but you're totally wide open here with your fortitude. So now I'm just going to brutally fucking play mental games with you. And that's where I would come in and piss people off. And then, that's not healthy. So now I take those opportunities to see if this person is good enough to be my mentor. That my ego is healthy with that. I don't want to work for people or with people if I'm not learning from them and they're not interested in what they're doing. Or if they really want to learn from me and I can provide that because I love to teach, then that's cool too. But it's just a really, it's an interesting thing, because we as human beings, we're not given enough credit in society for our natural instincts and reading people very well and seeing their soul, looking into their eyes, reading these small cues of body language that give up their story, that give their vulnerabilities up. And that can be deadly if you're good at that. That can be just, you can be so drunk with that sort of shit if you're able to detect that stuff. I can read people very well. But you can also think that you can read people so well that you're just reading your own insecurities too. So everything I feel like I talk about just goes full circle. It's pretty easy. You have to find this equilibrium with ego. Now, when it comes to the light side of spirituality, I think that is the most annoying for me. Because left-hand path practitioners who get really toxic, it's kind of like an understandable thing, but at least a lot of them are very honest in my, experience of just perceiving people. I really don't care if people, I'm not going to have beef with anybody. It's not worth my effort unless there's something I absolutely need to address. But I'm not trying to be friends with the world. I just really don't care. Like, this stuff is so boring to me to I've done it too many times. But anyways, at least with people on the left-hand path, and this is going to sound kind of biased, but this is just my observation. A lot of them are transparent. A lot of them are broken. A lot of them are trying to find help in healing, but they're also they're also in the victim mentality. It's very easy to get stuck there. I've been there. And that doesn't necessarily mean to say, oh, well, you don't understand my life story. Like, you don't have to even do that. You can be silent about that stuff like I was and go, no, fuck you. You were wrong about that because you think I've been through worse. Like, this person over here slapped me in the face, but I've been punched in the face and I've been knocked out by grown men. So I know more than you. That is, in your head, you'll think that. You might not have to vocalize that all the time because I feel like it's kind of cringe when people do. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to sound like a fucking dork. But yeah, that's not how you go about that. You're not entitled to anything because you've been through stuff. Like, none of us are. I'm not entitled to feeling sorry for myself. That's not going to benefit me or my kids. That's not going to help me with my goals. That's not going to help me be able to heal and come on here and just tell my stories in my way because it resonates with some people and that's cool. That's not the reason why I'm here. I don't even know why I'm fucking here, to be honest. Like, I just feel the need to do this. But you have to have balance, have mental fortitude with that. And the best way that you can do that is just be transparent. For me, in my practice, I don't have a choice. Working with infernals, they will call it out. They will clock that shit so quickly. So there is a lot of love and light and comfort in the left-hand path. But there's also a lot of grit and accountability and a lot of like, hey, before you're starting to get pissed off at people, rightfully so. Are you being a bit reactive here? Like, because that is my moral compass. That's not because demons care about, fairness. They might, and to a certain extent, absolutely, for the practitioners, in my experience, it's like, yeah, if anybody fucks with you, obviously you're going to have that protection. And you won't even need it to ask for it. That's the thing. And if you really have your mind right about this, I don't have to do work when people fuck with me. I'm not kidding. I see it just happen to them. I'm not even worried here's me. And this is, give me a second, please. Here's what I mean by this. If somebody has an issue with me, I let them and give them space to see if there is something that I need to fix. Maybe somebody's holding a grudge from the past and they're in that place and I understand what that's like and I understand what it's like to need validation, then we'll go do that. If somebody's just pissed off and they're taking it out on me, I might remind them, hey man, I ain't the one, that's it. But I don't have to exhaust my energy and argue with people anymore. It's fine to debate. I think debates are healthy when people aren't trying to prove each other wrong. You know what I mean? Or if you do, you're proving each other wrong by being cool, calm, and collect and having your shit together. You have your notes. You have it all up here mapped out because you've lived through it, you've done it, so you can talk about it. But people who have an ego, they're just like, all they care about is being right. We see that with journalism these days, which is like too big of a term for most of that. There's most people who consider themselves journalists just aren't. All they want to do is get views, and all they want to do is corner people and watch them react. It's abusive. No one wants to admit that, though, like how abusive and toxic that is when you have somebody under a lot of pressure, like on national TV, and all they can do is like, so I heard you didn't say somebody's pronouns, or, just some dumb thing. And I'm not like, talking, like trying to attack the left. I don't like the far left or the far right. I'm conservative about some things, and I'm liberal about a lot of things. But I want to make that clear because I just don't, because I am an eccentric person, people automatically assume I'm going to be social justice leaning. I'm not. I am fairness for human beings. I'm also not going to apologize for who I am or, sit here and validate you when you're being a complete fucking dick. Never gonna happen. Like I will not do it. I will not acknowledge you. So I don't play those games. You know, that's my only problem with maybe not my only problem with pronouns. I was cool with people's pronouns before people started using them to abuse other people and invalidate points that they've made in order to try to win an argument. It's a cheap shot. It's like punching somebody in the balls. Like on a street fight, you can. But good luck punching somebody in the balls in a street fight, because as soon as you give up that fucking quote unquote moral code, there's no rules to that. You know, people don't understand that sort of shit because we glamorize violence, we glamorize rage and glamorize arguing because we have all this fake shit around us that gives us an illusion of what it's like to be powerful and right and this, and it's like, I don't care. Gosh, I used to care about being right only because I felt like I was right and just, you know, robbed of justice so many times in my life and set up for, you know, we've been there. When you constantly feel like you're being set up for failure and rightfully blamed. I know people that have to do that, have had to deal with that with siblings, you know, where their siblings will tag team up on them and be like 3v1 and blame them for something because they feel insecure about that. My husband had to go through that. I'm at liberty to talk about that too. And he's so perseverant. And there's things because of that you can look on a positive side that he's a lot better at, because, you know, his brothers would gang up on him and you know, make him lose like at a game or something. Like he had to learn how to level up and be smarter and become very like reactive in his environment. And having two reactive people that have been like abused in different ways is just like a cocktail for just fucking disaster. So it was like vital for us to get our stuff together, because just because I have peace here in Australia, it doesn't mean that I always did. Because one thing is when you're in survival mode your whole life and you're ready for a fight and I was like that motherfucking shark off of Finding Nemo's. You ever see that shark when he smells the blood and he's like, oh, that's my ass when I see like the final boss picking on somebody with injustice. That's not healthy, you know? So like my ego these days is I see the situation and I try to empower the other person. Like, look, the only reason why this person's doing this is because they feel threatened. They feel threatened by the smaller person, because the smaller person might be a lot more charismatic or a lot more talented or a lot more intelligent. And a lot of the times it's a whole, you know, clusterfuck of different things. My husband has to deal with that in the workplace because he has had stereotypical terrible managers like most of us have, right? And he's always like a supervisor and second in charge and stuff like that, but he's had to deal with a lot of conflict. But just me seeing him transition into the man that he's becoming and the man that he is he is not as reactive. He handles and conducts things like a damn boss. He goes in there stealthily and fucking handles shit and makes sure that he has his ducks in a row, because if somebody tries to fire him or somebody's trying to, you know, there's things going on right now. Companies are collapsing, so he's going through fire right now at work because the companies are collapsing. People are demanding more pay. People are leaving. People are getting into fights where he's working. It's like a high stressful environment for, not for him, but in general. But he's so cool because he's a lot more patient than I am. But he also struggles with being reactive. So, you know, with his practice and just both of us learning and growing together, like he sees more potential in him as a leadership. And he doesn't want to let his ego get in the way of that, because when you get like that gotcha mentality and you can, my husband's very smart. He's extremely intelligent, and he's the type of person that if he's going to fuck you over, it's going to be divine timing and you're going to least expect it. And how he used to be, he would like love that, you know, like watching somebody just catch themselves on fire and shooting them up the ass. And 100% of the time it's people that absolutely deserved it, people who were super toxic, abusive, horrible, people who hated their kids, you know, that sort of stuff. Like he's seen that with bosses at work that called, like he had a boss that called his kid like a faggot, and I was, oh man, when I heard that, the boy was 10. I was about to go march like fucking Terminator, like fucking, was it T-2000 or whatever off of Terminator 2? I was about to fucking run up into his work and start, yeah, you know, I have that thing that I have to fix still. It's not for small things anymore. It's for fucking big things like that. But it's, you know, you can't do that. You can't be that person, because who are you to play God? I absolutely will fucking hex his ass. There's no problem with that. But I just, things like that is where I struggle with my ego, because you have to, even in those high sort of stressful situations, stay cool. You can't defeat your enemy if you're sloppy. If you're mentally sloppy and reactive, you're just going to gas out and they're going to just laugh at you. And I've done that before. You know, I've done that where it's like you feel like such a victim. You're like, just listen to me break down and scream. I'm not a monster. I'm just fucking broken. That's not going to help you either. So for me with ego is I feed my ego with a healthy diet of accountability and keeping myself in check and meeting my goals and feeling good about them, but not holding on to it. There's a saying in the restaurant world, you're only as good as your last meal you prepared. And I absolutely believe that, because that is really sad when you see people who, worked really good at a place and they can't let it go. Like me moving to Australia, I was like, I was told I cannot work here because of visa and this, I'm over 30, so they don't want people over 30 getting a working visa here in Australia because it's harder to exploit grown-ass adults. It's easier to exploit somebody that's like my daughter's age, she's 20, because she's starting out in life and she's young and she's full of hope and she's very positive and sweet and she's like such a fucking awesome person. And that's who they want. They want to rip the soul out of people like my daughter. Not people like me who's already had that shit happen, who's always like, you can have it, I don't need it because this shit's fucked. Like they don't want people like me that have experience to come and work. I can work in any restaurant here. I was looking into, I was like, oh man, there's a world of opportunities, this and that. So when I had that, personal small tower moment for me, my ego was like, ugh, man, I'm not ready to give this up and I ain't going to be that person. So I'm glad that I didn't give it up. I'm glad that I'm better than I was then. I'm serious. Like I put in the work these past 6 years being here. I'm a much better chef than I was. And I'm not like, I'm tired and we hustle. It's nice having a retired chef as a husband too. So we have that mentality. Our kitchen's very disciplined and it gets unorganized at times, to be honest. But there's organization. It's functional, and we function and we work really fast together, and it's cool. But I fed my ego a healthy diet of that, but I also don't have to cling on that. For me, it's like, okay, I did this and I'm so proud of myself. Do we need to go further right now, or should we focus on something else? Because me in the past, I would be like, oh, now we got to go to the next thing. Let's go. And you can't run away from yourself. So when you're balancing your ego, it's really important to let go of your accomplishments because no one wants to hear about them. I keep getting interrupted. I thought the mailman, the postie, we call him here, posties, I thought he was at the door because I was expecting a package. So I'm like, phew. So my microphone's probably like boom, boom, like dubstepping and shit because my heart. So anyways, I have a point that I've seen in the spiritual communities about getting rid of your ego. You can't get rid of your ego. It's always going to be there. Anybody who says that they've gotten rid of their ego, they're just being egotistical and they're blinded by it, in my opinion, because you can't, there's no even way to talk about that. If you didn't have an ego, why would you need to say that you don't? Wouldn't people be able to see that? But we have egos. It's a part of us, and we have to manage it. And some days are easier than others. Some situations are easier than others. Whether it's in our spiritual practice or with a coworker or a spouse or parent or sibling, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Every example I give doesn't necessarily reflect on my personal life either. I try to broaden out so it's not just me giving you shit to relate to that I've gone through. I don't want to sit here and circle jerk about my shit all the time either. But the point being in that is you can't get rid of your ego. You can't deplete it. You have to sustain it. But if we feed it junk, if we feed it all of the superficial crap, just hyper focusing on looking good, you should feel good about yourself. If you putting effort into yourself and wearing pretty makeup or wearing pretty dresses or wearing suits or wearing, I do it all. I wear dresses, I wear suits, I wear fucking my pajamas with my fun bun and no bra. My fucking titties just swinging all over the house. It doesn't matter. I am a very transparent, open book. You can't shame me. I've been shamed so much in the most harsh, horrific ways that you can think of. I've had my privacy fucking exposed, very intimate things exposed, almost revenge porn status. I've been told terrible things by people that were supposed to raise me. I am shameless in that sense. That doesn't mean that I have to act shameless. It means I'm a human being and I don't have to judge other people too for being shameless, for whatever that means to you. Unless you're hurting other people. All I give a shit is if you're overstepping other people's basic human rights, then you have a problem. But if you're not, and you're just being yourself, and you're not imposing on anybody, you're not hurting people and children and animals and stuff like that, it's cool. Do your thing. Like that, whatever that means to you, that do that, if that's important to you. But for me, it's just being yourself. If people hyper focus on how they look and that's all they've got, oh man, I know people like that. Trust me, I know people who do nothing. They can't even go to bed with clean face. They have to wear a full face of makeup, and they're just so insecure, and then they'll project that all onto you. So when you feel good about yourself, they'll remind you, I think you need to get some lip injections. I think you need to wear some bronzer. I think you need to dye your hair. I think I've heard it all. But you can't let somebody take your power in those situations, right? Because they do, especially people when we're young and impressionable, and people are supposed to like protect you. You feel bad. You feel like you need lip fillers. You feel like you're too fat. You feel like you're too tall or too short or too this or too that. That's a good sign when people do that. And this is like, I've heard all this stuff. Some people who are like young watching this are like, yeah, I've heard that. They're projecting their insecurities onto you, and you're too indoctrinated and broken down to see that. But with healing, you'll see that and you'll go, maybe? What if that's just like me being egotistical? I've talked about this in counseling. I've talked about this in private with like, partners and stuff. I've had to go through a lot of this sort of stuff. And I'm barely getting to the point in my life where I'm coming out of that haze. I'm appreciating myself for how I look, but I'm not obsessed with it. I don't have to do things to make me feel better. I do things to just make me feel better. Does that make sense? It's like the same sentence, but in different things. I don't have to do all these things and then be like, oh, see, look at, I don't care. You guys see me on Instagram with like busted and 2:00 in the morning or 4 a.m. My freaking gray roots are growing out. I haven't dyed my hair in months anyways, because like, first of all, because I've gotten a couple people criticize that, and I have to say something. Hair dye in Australia right now is about like $25 a box. I have a lot of heavy hair. I have a lot of hair. It's a lot. It takes 2 to 3 boxes for me. I'm not spending near $100 fucking dollars on a boxed hair dye right now. So I don't care. Like, that's it. That's where I am right now. So unless I find something better or like an alternative, then I'll like worry about that. Because right now my big concern is everything that I'm investing, any extra money that comes in for me, I'm going right back into this shit to make sure that that gentleman right there that handles everything doesn't have to go back and work in that system anymore. Because he worked his ass off. And he's helped me. He took care of me. I just want to say that about my husband. My husband took really good care of me, and he never complained once. I came here empty-handed. I had my business taken from me from someone in my past. I got my website deleted. I lost everything. And then I got into debt coming over here because the visa process was really, really brutal, and it cost nearly 30 grand. And then my daughter had emergency surgery, and I had to pay that hospital bill by myself. Nobody wanted to help with that, even though it's their responsibility. So that's another $11,000. He helped me with everything. So that's why I do that. Like, I'm serious. Because I didn't have anybody, and everybody was like, good, you fall, you fucking bitch. Like, go fall. So my ego was really shot to hell as somebody who doesn't like to depend on people, who did not want to depend on somebody. I've been hyper independent my whole life. That was my lesson for ego. It really was, because my husband is not perfect, man. And I know I talk about him a lot, but that's all I've got. Anytime he and I have had problems, because I've been fucking like 1 foot out the door, I've threatened that before. I'm not going to go into details, but we've had problems. I've had problems in this happy next chapter of my life. And I'll tell you what, anytime now, well, we're not toxic anymore. We feel reactive, and we help each other, and we give each other what we need. That's where we are. I'm not in this toxic environment, but we've been toxic. I struggled a lot, man. And I've been very fucking toxic, and I've been very abusive in different ways in the past, like just in general, just reactive. But for him, any time that we would struggle, when we started to get out of that, it's like, man, look, all we got is each other. We don't got family. We don't have friends. All the kids have is us. My kids have others too. I'm not trying to paint that picture, but at the time they didn't. At the time they fucking did not. This is all you have in life. It's lonely. It's scary. This is like, 7 billion people now on the planet? And everybody's alone. Everybody feels lonely. So you have to work that out to keep your tribe, man. I'm not saying tolerate stuff and stay in a toxic environment. No. I'm saying when you see somebody that you love that's struggling, but they're trying, they're wanting to get out of it, then in my opinion, push that thing. Push it through, unless you need space because you're breaking down. I'm not giving you answers to your life. I get a lot of questions for some fucking reason on how to help people in their lives. And I get people, asking me, oh, can you do spells? I just refer them to friends who do have those services. Like they want to do certain spells or hexes and things like that. I don't offer services simply because some of them are just out of my spectrum of interest. And then another reason is just it's too much energy for me to invest when I have everything else going on. So I'm not bought by money. Like I'm not a cuck to money. I was in different areas to money, but not like that. When I'm not saying that if you sell witchcraft services that you're a cuck to money, I'm saying I won't just do something that somebody's asking me through my DMs because they offered me $500 or something, unless it's in alignment to something that I would generally want to do, and that's like good divine timing for something you need that costs $500, right? That's different. I know I've been talking about I know that I was talking about like my husband and how much he's helped me and everything. I learned a lesson about hyper-independence with that. I'm not used to asking for motherfuckers for help, because anytime I have, it's been half-assed. Like literally half-assed. I had a family member when I gave birth to my son, like in 2006. I had one family member that I've never asked anybody to watch my kids, anything. Can you please watch my daughter so I can have surgery and give birth? Couldn't do it, had to go to a party next day. Like just drop the baby off at the hospital and sorry, we have things to do. And that was like so fucking debilitatingly hurtful for me. And I'm talking about that sort of stuff, not because I need to reiterate it, but to paint a picture for people of helplessness and paint a picture for people of why I'm hyper independent. It's shit like that. I got emancipated at 16. I've been taking care of myself, and I had a family before this family for sure. So I'm not saying that I did it all, especially financially. I don't want to paint that picture either. But my point is I don't like asking for help, because any time that I have when I needed it, like absolutely needed it, no motherfuckers ever come through. No friends, nobody. But I've always been there for people. So I started to get angry about that. Like, well, fuck all of you people. You can all just fuck off and die. Like, not, just some people, yeah, I felt like that. Like, fuck you then. You're willing to watch me burn and laugh at that? Then fine. And then so here's the thing with ego, right? And entering your villain era. You got to navigate that shit so good and pan that shit out and figure out where the fuck on this spectrum do I belong. Because I'm in my quote-unquote villain era. I've always been the villain. I've always been the problem. I've always been a liar. I've always been the issue. It's always my fault somebody dies. It's my fault somebody does drugs. It's my fault somebody lost their job. It's my fault somebody didn't have... For fucking everything. It's my fault fucking, he hit you. It's my fault that if you didn't talk back, you wouldn't have gotten knocked out. I am past that shit. But I am also past reacting to that shit, because we get into... If those of you who ever watch anime, there's a spoiler alert from Full Metal Alchemist. Do you remember when Colonel Mustang, he kills one of the 7 deadly sins? I'm sorry for those of you who don't fucking know what I'm talking about. Anyways, there's this bro off this anime, right? And he's like fucking charging. He wants to be like the Fuhrer one day. And he does like fire alchemy. And there's this asshole and that's been fucking with him forever. And then he got a chance to kill him. And he's just like boom, 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 boom for fucking days, dude. He just like O.J. Simpson this character's ass. And you can't do that shit. Whether it's emotionally or energetically or especially physically, please, anything like that. You can't have that energy, because you are just going to gas the fuck out, and you will be left still angry. You will be left feeling like, I want to revive that person and just do it again, and you cannot get to that place. So when you're in that place and these motherfuckers are coming around and blaming you, and you're like, oh man, I know for a fact that this is them this time, because I'm healing and I know when it's me and I know when it's them. That is when you make the decision on what type of villain you want to be. The type of villain that I'm willing to be is a quiet one. Not because I'm hiding. It's because I'm resting. It's like a lion. Lions don't sit there and fucking walk around all day talking about how they're the king of the jungle. Fucking, you, what's up, alpha bro? You know, like, that's not what a lion does. A lion sits down and rests and chills until he's got to exhaust all of that energy for the hunt. And then when he's done with the hunt, he's not there going, rah, ha, 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 you know, fucking, you just bathing in the fucking antelope's blood and jerking off and shit. No. He goes and takes the antelope back to his fucking family. Usually the female lions do that, I know, but just hear me out, okay? He'll go and kill and protect his tribe. Or the female lionesses will, you know? But they don't sit there and, like, feed off of the rage, the blood. They go in, they get shit done. If they have energy left over, then that means they got more energy for the harder hunt. That's the kind of person I want to be. And it's not because the lion's the king. It's just because the lion has philosophy that you can learn from and how to hold your fucking power quietly and let that shit out when you absolutely need to. Because when you absolutely need to, it's usually when a bunch of other motherfuckers are trying to stampede your ass in groups. So if you got 20v1 and you know you've done some damage, but for a lot of motherfuckers you're just living your life, know how to handle it. Sometimes you gotta run away. You can't take 1v. Don't be that egotistical either, right? You got fucking 20 psycho animals coming after you, buffalo or something like that. What are you gonna do? Well, I'll take them. You're gonna be that guy? You ain't gonna be that guy. The lion's got people in his tribe. Or the lioness has a group of lionesses. I'm sorry if I don't get all the terms right. They train each other. They set examples. And that's why the lions are chill. They hold posts. If you've ever seen lions too, like, you know, on the roads, they do like a grid system watch. Like, here's my phone, right? It'll be like one over here, one over here, one over here, and they'll be all looking straight forward and chilling. That's what you do. They're not sitting there pacing back and forth, wasting their energy, showing everybody silently who walks by who's in charge. They're not doing that shit. That's the best thing you could do, is just not act like you're in charge. Because then nobody will know. And then you'll see who's going to try to take your throne. And it's not about taking your throne. It's about taking the thing you earned. See, whatever position I'm in my life, I'm not talking about status or stupid shit. Me in here, I earned this shit. I had to fucking break down. I had to overcome a lot of obstacles. A lot of my own obstacles. And a lot of other people's obstacles. But you know what? One thing ego taught me, you can't get over other people's shit until you get over yours first. You cannot get over other people's bullshit that they've done to you or to themselves that affected you until you get over whatever it is that you've done to yourself first, and then maybe to some of those people, because not every relationship is transactional with toxicity. There are very few relationships for me that I am on equal plane of toxicity, and I will forgive that person because I know they're working on themselves. But all these other motherfuckers that were supposed to protect me when I was a tiny child and never did, and then I grew up and I was still the problem, they can fuck off. I wish you no harm, but I also don't care if you have peace or not. That's it. How easy is that? Can you imagine if I sat here and fucking, I can't believe that this person did this and this, for what? What's that do for you? What kind of example is that setting for my kids? I don't want my kids to be holding on to shit. It's pathetic. It's a pathetic feeling when you aren't over something you should be over. I've been there. I've held on to shit. Man, like the Rothschilds hold on to their fucking money. I'm serious. I am so serious. I would hold a grudge because somebody fucked me over, and then if they fucked me over a little bit less, like, 6 months later, 2 years later, I would be like, actually, let's get this right here. Fucking chapter 3, section fucking 4, looks like you were a motherfucker. Like stupid shit like that you would always do. And it's like you're trying to cheaply win an argument like that because your ego is just bruised and damaged and hurt. So you gotta heal that. You gotta get that back to health. By getting the fuck away from these people, if you can. I know that's easier said than done for those of you. I hear messages, so if it feels like I'm talking like everybody's just in a bad situation, I hear a lot of really intense stories, and it's kind of makes me sad because I feel like I hear more bad stories than good stories, and it's sad. But people need fucking healing. I'm not here to heal you. I can just tell you what I've done, but I can also tell you it's not easy. I've had to, like, when they say when you swallow your pride, it's like eating crow. Bitch, I fucking ran a bakery of crow pies. I got a whole bakery. Like, that's what I mean. I eat nothing but that shit all day long for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Crow for breakfast, crow for lunch, crow. We're in the fucking apocalypse. We're gonna have to start doing that. Please don't eat crows. They're sacred. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not okay to hold on to that stuff because it does you no good. So I am in a way going backtracking to, or just making full circle to the people in the left-hand path community who, if you struggle with that sort of stuff, watch those of you who make videos doing this shit, because I've seen practitioners I really, really respect, and it's fine. I understand people get heated. You think I haven't said goofy shit on the internet? I've gotten into shit with people on TikTok for sure, like in the past year. There's a time and a place for sure. I am not here to say that you have to be quiet and kumbaya all the time. Like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm dead serious. You can have a fucking nuke button on your desk. You don't need to tell anybody about it. That's my point. You don't need to say, I got a shiny button like, Trump did and shit. Working with infernals, one of my first lessons, like with Lucifer, like the first year working with him, was learning how to ask for help. Like it was. Even like, having stuff for your tips on TikTok. I felt like, I don't want to e-beg. And he reminds you, like, well, look at all the work that you put, like all the tutorials and all the time it takes. It takes a while. Some tutorials are easy to edit. Some take a long time. And then I got my day, so I can't get to all of it at once. But I put a lot of energy and thought. And when I can't edit and I can't film quietly like I am now, a lot of the times if I'm not hanging out with my kids, which I do half the day, I'm filming when I'm doing some of my chores because I make content off of it. And I put a lot of energy, and he's makes you see that, like, well, hey, look at all the work that you're putting. And so they help you, not by just, I get blessed, trust me. I've gotten like such cool blessings. Belial, like, I did a pact with him the first year I worked with him, and I had debt still from my visa costing $30,000, and I was just like crying because I want to pay it back so bad, and my husband just paying it gracefully, and I'm just not okay with it every day. Like, for real, I'm not even kidding. It sounds like, oh, yeah, sure. Every fucking day I stressed on this shit for years, man. Like, held it in and apologized, and he was always like, stop, it's fine. And I made a pact with Belial, and literally within a week, it was cleared. It was super cleared. I'm not kidding. It was cleared. There was some incentive that I could do to pay off the rest of it, or, not even settle for a small amount. It can just clear. And a lot of it had to do with like the economy and people not just being able to pay it back. Like I said, we got crashed here. We got rocked here in Australia, man. There's a lot of shit going on right now, and we're getting out of it. But man, this world is cruel, isn't it? And I got it good right now. So I'm not going to say that my life is like terrible, but financially it's been crazy. So I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself or act poor or pretend I'm not. You know what I mean? I don't feel poor. This is temporary. You guys need to understand that. There's a lot of people who've had lots of money and they've lost it all, and they've lost the connections, and they've rebuilt because they had the mentality and the mindset and the knowledge of how to do it. And if you don't have that knowledge, then you can learn it. There's opportunities, whatever it is your calling is. Our ego sometimes pushes us too fast into the volcano. We can't just like kind of observe it. It'll be like, oh, go right in, dive in. And sometimes it's like, I don't want to go near that fucking mountain range. What if it's a volcano? It does the opposite too. And you can't feel bad about that. You don't owe anybody. Like, what, seriously, when we get out of our own shit and we start healing and we evaluate our ego, what are we so afraid of? Because when you grow, you outgrow your abusers, you outgrow your environmental factors, you outgrow toxic people in your workplace, because you see the shit, you see what they're going through, and it's like you're past it. You can't relate to that shit. But as a result, and as a burden of that blessing, you gotta fucking check it, because you can become godlike mentality when you've got your shit together. And I've been there. And I'm glad that I nipped it in the bud when I did, because that shit can just take off and make you crazy and make you drunk with thinking you're right about everything. So when I tell all these stories and I come on my pedestal and I talk, it's because I've hit rock bottom. I've been rocked. I've been fucking everything. And I've had to crawl up. And I've had to acknowledge the help that I have gotten. I've had to ask for help when I absolutely did not want to, but I absolutely needed to because there were other things that were more important than my pride. Like, my kids and my mental health and surviving, everything. And when I started to overcome that, like working with Lucifer in particular, I started to really heal. When I started to be okay to ask for help when I was just at my lowest, I became okay. You feel nurtured. You feel like someone cares about you. People care about you. People actually care, not just when you're cool, because that was my issue. People loved me when I was this, but when I was pissed off because they were toxic, all of a sudden you're the worst bitch in the world. And sometimes I deserved that. Sometimes it's because I was acting like the worst bitch reactively. But a lot of the times it's coming from a place of pain, but that's not, it's an entitlement. So I share my stories on my platforms. It's not for pity. It's not to sink you down, because that happens sometimes when people hear you telling your story. Their ego gets fed with self-pity and, oh, me too. It's like, we can't live in this society. The governments in our systems are wanting us to be like that, wanting us to feel sorry for ourselves and lick our wounds. And I have it harder as a woman than you do as a man. I have it harder as a this and then I do as a that. I have it harder as a man who's short than a man who's tall. I have it harder than somebody who lives in this side of the fucking street than this side of the street. I have it harder because I'm white, because I'm black, because I'm Latino, because I'm Asian, because I'm mixed, because I'm that. There is so many factors into that. Everybody's a victim of this shit. Some of us in one boat way more than others, and then other boats way more than others are the other people. Like, men have it a lot easier than women do for a lot of reasons. We have it a lot easier than they do for a lot of reasons. But because everybody's sitting here fucking throwing a pity party, they don't want to validate other people. And a lot of times they don't, is because those people come and invade their space where they need validation. How many times do we see that? Where somebody's like talking about a woman's topic, a woman's issue that we're going through and we feel oppressed by. And then some dude comes in, well, what about the fucking guys? It's like, we're not talking about that. But yeah, we should make space for the guys. But that is not an appropriate spot to do that. It's like fucking announcing your engagement at somebody else's wedding. You know what I mean? Or talking about your problems at someone's fucking funeral. That's a better analogy, I think, in this situation. Like, you can't be doing that shit. So if we all got our shit together, right? Hypothetically, what a great idea. We would be able to give each other space and go, shit, this is where we fucked up. This is where we fucked up in history. And we can make it better. That happens too, like in America with Black Americans. I'm mixed and I'm white as fucking ghost, obviously, right? My family, a lot of them, my grandparents, most of them got off the fucking boat in recent years, recent times. So my family wasn't here. Some of them were here like in California, like forever before California became America. But outside of that sort of stuff, you would hear people in, Black communities blame me. Like one time, this bitch, she was throwing a big house party, right? And she was in my parking spot. And she was one of those chicks that try to act hood, but she didn't grow up hood because I knew her mom. And her mom, she was hanging around super thugs, man, like bad people. They tried to siphon my fucking gas. I almost got into a bunch of fights. It was super crazy. So anyways, she's throwing a big old house party. Like those fucking, what's those cats on that meme from, what was that movie, that Disney movie? All the cats are playing the piano and it's like banging down all the floors. These were these motherfuckers, okay? So my point is I went over and I was being cool. And I was like, hey, I'm just, I know that you're having a party, but one of your homeboys is parked in my spot. If you can just have him move because, I have a long day. Oh, is it because I'm Black? That shit. And I'm just like, oh, here we fucking go. You know what I mean? It's like, no, bitch, it's because you're throwing a house party. That's why I came to your house, because you're the only one in these apartments, in these units that are being fucking loud as fuck as usual. And, it's that sort of shit. That's what I mean. Even though, as a Black American, there are obviously problems, right? Like, I'm not trying to invalidate that. And that's a problem people have too. It's like, well, how dare you talk about a flaw somebody made when they're oppressed? Like, no, bitch, she's being a fucking dumb bitch. I don't care what color skin you have. I don't care if you're polka dot stripe, you got heart stars, fucking shapes. I don't care if you got the fucking gay flag wrapped around your neck. I do not care. As long as you are a decent human being. And if you're not a decent human being, then leave me the fuck alone and I'll leave you the fuck alone. That's it. That's all I ask. I do not care. That is not racist. My point in that is, it wasn't to make it about me. It's that that person assumed that I was racist because of the color of my skin, because my ancestors enslaved hers, and my ancestors weren't even fucking here. I had some from Europe, some from Middle East, and like, I don't have, you know what I mean? And some from North America. I love diversity, and I love the culture that I grew up in. I love the cultures I've been exposed to because of some of my friends and shit. We got to get past this shit. That is my point. Is because I say something like that, like, you know, a black woman tried to accuse me being racist. Oh, how dare you? That is crazy low fucking level mentality to say that because, you know, I don't owe anybody my parking spot because somebody's ancestors might have been fucking enslaved. That's not how this should work. I'm not apologizing for shit that I had no control over. But what I think is important is that we have discussions and not repeat history. We don't repeat history where everybody's just hating on fucking white people now, and then in 200 years it's going to be that sort of shit, because that I see that. I do. I see people loving to see white people get completely annihilated just because they're white, not because of any other reason. And obviously white people do that to black people. I am biracial. You think I didn't go through that shit in my own household? I don't have the same problems as a black American, though. That doesn't mean that I can't complain about it. And if you're going to sit here and say, oh, that's not fair, the same people that will say that, because I've done this argument, like feminists, I'll say, why don't you focus on the women in Iran who have to go through that shit? Oh, what about our oppression? I'm triggered because my pronouns. Well, why is your smaller issue okay, but then my smaller issue within racism and colorism not okay? That's my point. But if we all had a clear fucking head, we would be able to navigate that shit. Because I feel like a lot of those narratives are dying down too, because people are just burnt out. We're burnt out from fighting each other. Do you notice that? I like to read comments to see where people are, and I see people's egos come out. Everybody's got a gotcha argue. Everybody's got, oh yeah, what about this? And it's like, geez, man. But then I see also when somebody says stuff like that, oh, it's because I'm a gay black man. It's like, shut the fuck up. It's because you're toxic and you're abusing this person. So people are starting to not apologize and dance around circles. I noticed that with the radical lefts and the radical rights. People are starting to get burnt out from the arguing. Like, they are breaking us down in society. These oligarchs are breaking us down. For those of you who have dealt with narcissistic abuse, you know what it's like to be so fucking numb and broken down that you can't even emote anymore because you're so used to being like annihilated emotionally or being manipulated or being controlled and all these other things that you don't even fucking feel anymore. You just feel numb. You know, that's where we're at. Where people have apathy toward people, like, oh, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. Because for one, it means people are getting a check. They're getting to check their ego and they're getting called out on shit, and people are being less afraid of speaking up. You know what I mean? People should have these conversations and say, hey, man, this was issues in our community. Black people aren't fucking just thugging. It's because systematically we're being oppressed, and the police are fucking just have no mental fortitude to do their job, let alone the physicalities to do them. And that's not being fucking, you know, body shaming. It's just, if I were to be a police officer, I would want to be like in elite shape so I can protect people and I can do my job. But that's not what police are there for. And me growing up and having the fucking cops called on me all the time, and having the cops at my house, growing up as a kid, growing up as an adult, neighbors, everything. I know that for a fact. I've been around more shady piece of shit cops than I have good ones. And that's an ego thing. They see what they do is they wear us down mentally, and then we try to fill ourselves back up because we're empty with this fucking inflated ego. So you get some stupid cop with 2.5 brain cells sitting there doing this. My point in this is they get us by fucking with our egos. Systematically. Everybody's happy because, okay, the Biden administration is terrible and corrupt, and I will die on that hill. The Clintons are fucking warmongers. These people have profited and have just embezzled trillions of dollars through the MIC, the military industrial complex. This is a known fact. This isn't conspiracy. This is out. There's leaked information. It's here. But because President Biden used he, him pronouns, everybody, yes, making videos. Oh my gosh, he's so adorable for that. I'm like, this dude's a predator, and he sniffs little girls' hair and makes people uncomfortable. And his daughter even said that he molested her and had a journal. And where's her story? What about her too? How come Me Too doesn't matter for her? Because that shit got scrubbed quick. I remember seeing that shit hot when it happened, and then it was gone from the internet next day. My husband and I will document this stuff. We'll take screen caps and stuff, because we'll try to go back and the articles are gone. And motherfuckers don't want to admit that. On the flip side, with the right-wing party, the Republican Party, they're passing laws in certain states to allow child labor. There are 13, 14, 15-year-olds working overnights in factories in America right now, and there are 10-year-olds that were working at McDonald's in Kentucky. And that was the radical right that wants to do that, because they're just as corrupt. And just because I am pro-guns and pro-arms for certain criteria doesn't mean that I'm fucking a Republican. I'm on no side. I'm okay with being hated by both sides. That's where I earned my spot, because I see this shit and people don't want to admit it. The fucking president said he, him, and everybody's like, yes, nobody gave a fuck that he was a predator at all. Not one fuck. He, him pronouns. Yes. We got trans people wearing, lip gloss and glitter in the office. Yes, this is so progressive. That's all you care about, you fucking idiots? Look at your country. Look at this world. That's your problem? And when it comes to the right, it's the same shit. If your kid doesn't fucking die of exhaustion and get burnt out from working, slave child labor, when they're 18, they'll just get fucked off to the military and die for a glorified oil company. And if they don't die, they'll come back fucked up completely. And they won't probably get compensated for that either. Because where I come from, I've seen most homeless people that I've crossed paths. California's got lots of homeless people. Man, it's sad. And I was cool with homeless people. Homeless people helped me get home safe when I would have to walk home from work at 14. Because I used to have to walk 45 minutes at 11:30 at night by myself, because no one wanted to give me a ride home or pick me up. They tell me, fuck you, I ain't doing that. So homeless people would guide me if my boss didn't give me a ride home. And I learned a lot, because I used to be afraid, oh, that crazy bum's going to try to get me or something. They're not, man. That's just another systematic thing. And most of them were veterans. And you learn a lot from people when you start cracking out of the system and you see individuals for who they are. And it's heartbreaking story. Some people are cool with it. And you're like, how are you cool with being homeless? They're like, I don't want to fucking deal with this shit. I'm cool. I work. I'm making it. Cool. That's not what we should have to do, though, especially a veteran of foreign war was probably drafted and forced to do that should be well taken care of. When the military-industrial complex is making $5 trillion a year and embezzling half of it, you motherfuckers are more worried about stupid shit. Here's another ego thing, and I hope people who are against what I'm saying can just listen for a minute. The number one business globally is child trafficking. And the people that are making your laws and making you feel happy, whether you're red or blue in America, whether you're this or that in other countries, they're the ones that are profiting off of it, and they're the ones investing into that. Where the fuck's the outrage? What happened with Balenciaga? That shit just went away because it's not trending anymore, right? We're all back. We can go and do it. What about Disney? Disney was a big, corrupt corporation. I want people to get this. This is relevant because I'm talking about our egos here. This is how they break us down. Disney is one of the most vile corporations, allegedly, on the planet. They override the laws in Florida. And here's something you guys don't know. And this is coming from somebody with family who's worked in agriculture, and I didn't have to, okay? In all aspects of agriculture, whose grandparents worked in fields and that sort of shit. In Florida, they are getting rid of immigrants, right? For immigrant labor. Because first of all, in agriculture, they get way underpaid under the table, and it's hard fucking work. It's back-breaking labor. It's not cool. You see that growing up with your friends' parents and people that, you come home from that sort of work there, and it's a lot of people that are a lot older doing that stuff too. So even though I understand that people are retaliating because Latinos don't want to be in Florida anymore, I think that's great to stand up for yourself. But now Disney's coming in and saying, hey, you can't do that because we had deals with the former government that we can override the government. And what are people doing about that? They're going, yeah, fucking Disney cares about Latinos. Disney doesn't care about Latinos, man. Disney does not care about Chicanos or anybody, or your migrant grandparents, your migrant parents that have to come. They do not care. They care about their slave labor. And no one cares that a fucking animation studio has more legal grounds than the actual government. So you know what's probably going to happen. These farms will merge because they can't afford to keep up with their costs. They'll merge into bigger corporations. They'll get investments from these other Vanguard companies and these other bullshit companies. And then they'll bring out back the immigrant workers with some new face in charge, right? And then what happens, and this is a real thing, I know this, man. I know this for a fact. I lived in this environment. Like growing up in California, this is the shit you see all the time when you work. I lived in agriculture capital of California. They'll have all of the Latinos come back and promise more incentives and this, and then they'll make a deal with immigration. They'll make a deal to get rid of and deport a fraction of Latinos at random if you let us keep these illegal immigrants so we can continue to make our profits. That shit happened with Smithfield, the pork company in North Carolina. That shit happens all of the time. It's just some of us have seen this shit and studied it and maybe lived it. Not me in that situation. You know, I'm so grateful that with my family line evolving in agriculture, I get to cook food and appreciate it. But I've always thought about that in the back of my head as a chef. I'm serious. It's not to make me feel humbled, but like I didn't have to work as a kid. My parents did. My grandparents did. I didn't have to work as a child. I'm sure as hell not going to live in a system where my kids have to work as children either, though. So that is my point. It's everybody's playing checkers, and these motherfuckers are playing chess. And I and a lot of people that are a lot more intelligent than me, we're sitting outside of the fucking board game, and we're going, this is stupid, man. They're just clowning these people, and they don't even realize it, because these people are broken down. The ones that are going, yes, for my pronouns, and the ones that are going, oh, America's guns. All of those people, they're broken down. They're not validated because they fight over who's right, who's wrong all the time. So the system manipulates our egos, and it makes us fight with each other about religion, about politics, about race, about zesting a fucking lemon. Literally, I saw that. Like, I literally saw a whole argument on TikTok about zesting a lemon improperly. And I'm like, this is where we are. It wasn't even like that 5 years ago. It wasn't even that bad. With the gaming community, it's disgusting. I don't even play video games anymore because it's so fucking gross. I can't even be in that headspace. I can handle that shit. Somebody telling me to go off myself or calling me terrible names or whatever, that doesn't bother me. But as a spiritual person who's on a path of like recovery and growth and all this stuff, I don't want to be in that vortex unless there's a lesson for me to learn in it, unless I'm to be in those sorts of situations that are actually important. But playing a video game is not that fucking important to me anymore. What's important to me is just having a constitution in myself and teaching that to my children. Because I don't want to let them down, man. I'm not going to let them down. I'm not going to let them down. I tell them too, if something happens to me and I don't make it before I hit the finish line, you do not feel sorry for me. I fucking gave it 2,000%. Now you pick up the baton and do it in your own way. That's what that's about. And that's me being humble. That's me teaching a good example to my kids, is I just refuse to give up. I refuse to give up on my dreams. I don't care. People make fun of me. People made fun of me in my environment. Oh, look at you. You got 2 views. How pathetic. I don't care. I got like 50 people on this little platform. I don't give a fuck. I've had people back home. Every single person with the exception of 2 people found my older YouTube channel. And everybody had a problem. Not like friends and stuff. Some friends were talking hella shit though. I'm super serious. You see that shit. And I was like, man, I just got like a few thousand people on here. And pulling like a few thousand views. It's not like I'm like some PewDiePie or whatever bullshit. Who cares, man? Like, I'm just doing my thing. I enjoy my little cozy community. And people are really supportive, and people help me pay the bills, and it's really kind, and it's nice. Fuck, for me to talk and make people laugh? What the fuck's the problem? And it broke me down. I stopped. I felt really ashamed, and I got shamed out of it for a bit. And then I recalibrated, and I went, I can't give this up. So I came back. And now I get mocked and I get laughed at. I hold my head high and I ignore it. Watch me. Keep watching me and laughing. There's my ego. I won't even pay attention if people are watching me now. What I do is I just show up for myself every day. And when I do feel that little urge, you know, like fuck you motherfuckers and watch me, because, you know, that sort of stuff, that's healthy in small doses. You know, just like a glass of wine for some people is healthy in small doses, or eating some yummy cake is healthy in moderate doses. Doing cocaine, no, I'm just kidding. I'm super kidding. Don't do it. I'm super kidding. But yeah, We just have to have a sense of humility in our vortex and not to be self-depreciating, but to keep us leveled with our ego. Because when you start coming into your power, and what I've realized with me working with infernals, and I'm going to leave with this for real though, is I feel very powerful and I feel very strong and mentally strong and clear-headed. Things don't bother me, but I'm not numb. I'm like clear. Like they helped me break out of my own shell, and I'm like breathing fresh actual oxygen for the first time. And it's almost like you're given, like, not everything, but you're given all of this, and you're told, okay, how are you going to handle it? It's like somebody, like, this is a good example real quick with finance, and I want to make a video on this as a fucking broke ass, but how are you going to handle if somebody did give you $20 million? What would be the first thing you would do? A lot of people don't know what they would do. A lot of people don't know, well, I would look into a proper investor, into a lawyer, and do this and get this set up. I had to learn that working with Mammon. I know how to be a millionaire now, so I'm working on that. That's cool, isn't it? You can too. It's just a lot of hard work. I've been doing this for a few years. I ain't fucking stopping either. And the economy is getting worse. Imagine that. I'm doing this during this time. This is a perfect time for me. Because I know for me, with my ego being fed, I'm going to earn this. But I didn't do it alone either. And there's another element of ego that a lot of people say, I'm self-made, I'm self-made. I am not going to be self-made. My family supported me. My husband and my 2 older kids support me so fucking much. They believe in me, and they don't depend on me. They all got their own goals that they're doing the same thing in their own ways. It's just not mom doing it and they're going to make it big because of mom. They're all literally, we're all working exactly the same pace, the same, they're posting too. They have animation. They do animation. They're posting. They post, they study, they do voice acting, and they care about it. They're fucking artists, man. They're amazing kids. I'm not going to fuck it up for them. And that's where we have to keep ourselves humble. A lot of you don't have kids, and a lot of you don't want kids, and I support that completely, because this is wild to have kids in this environment with this shit going on. I feel bad for people who want kids and they don't feel like they can. I get it, man. Like, fuck, I'm a mom of 4. So, but I get humbled quick by all my kids, because I can't just sit here and be on my pedestal and then fucking my shit up and then telling them what to do. What I do tell them is like, hey, this is where I screwed up, and now that I'm out of it, you can bypass those mistakes. There's mistakes that those who came before me that I've never had to experience, because I learned. You know what I mean? I learned from my environment. And some of those people that were toxic gave me good gems, man. I stayed out of a lot of trouble because I did listen to certain factions and people in my life. And I'm very grateful for that. And I didn't realize that until I healed from their abuse. So I have to take what I have and swallow my ego. And you don't got to do that. Don't do it for anybody else. But honestly, I would say do it for yourself. There's shit that I learned from people that were horrific to me. And I don't hold on to those good things to dismiss the bad things. But I don't want to dismiss those good things that benefit me and helped create an element or a chip of my character because of the bad things either. Because now I'm letting my ego get into the way. Where I am is like, fine, you were a piece of shit, but you also had these good things that can contribute to me. I'll take that and honor myself. Not you, not anybody else, but me, because I want to be good for them. And that's all you got to do, man, is do it in your own way, whatever that philosophy means to you. I'm really grateful for my path. And I sound like one of those, commercial salesmen, like, I am so grateful I worked with the devil. I've learned so much. I have money and confidence, and it's great. Can you imagine? But in all seriousness, the devil fucking will show you the real father wound, because he's gone through it. And he'll show you perseverance, and he'll teach you along the way, and he'll humble your ass too when you're not humble. This is the thing. You think that I'm just skirting around and I have all the answers. Oh, I hacked all of this, guys. All you got to do is find balance. Hell no. There's times where I'm egotistical and other elements that I didn't realize because I was so blinded by pain and everything else in my vortex. So that's cleared. And then boom, this comes up. I'm like, what? Why? And then you realize, shit, man, there's so many layers to us. There's so many fucking layers that can create us, and sometimes it's really conflicting when you've got layers of toxicity and pain and layers of beauty and art and amazement and talent and whatever it is that you do. I know so many amazing people that make content in the witchcraft super duper communities and stuff. Gosh, there's so many amazing, beautiful people. I love just seeing the energy people make. It's so amazing. But imagine if I had a super bad ego and I'm like, fuck that bitch. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen that shit too. I've had that happen to me. I've had friends that have had that happen to them. It's crazy. So the best that you can do, man, in my opinion, is just be real with yourself. And if you don't know where to start, look in the mirror. Seriously, like literally look into the mirror, talk to yourself like you would to people you care about. Like just start from there. Just say hello. And I'm telling you, it sounds crazy, but I have full fucking fledged conversations with myself, sometimes in tears, when I'm happy, when things are doing good. I'm like, yo, ground yourself. Don't get too fucking head in the clouds, because shit's starting to happen for you and it gets overwhelming. You're like, oh my gosh, this is happening and this is real. And oh my gosh, it's exciting. But it's like, fucking chill, man. Don't gas out that energy either, because we've seen that happen with success. It's equivalent exchange. I really believe that. And it's not to spook people out, but a lot of people who are like ultra successful in whatever areas, there's some fucked up super duper bad shit that's happened to them. So I like to stay cool. I want to continue to be like this no matter what. My goals aren't aligned with needing to flash off stupid shit. I don't care. I really don't care. If somebody bought me a Ferrari or something, it'd be fun, but I'd be like, cool. I don't need to show it off. It's kind of rude. I don't know. It's just kind of a thing. But also, you shouldn't be apologetic for that. But what would be nice is if we just got to a place of abundance collectively, right? Like, kumbaya, but if we all were given the tools and the opportunity to heal, because we do have, like, the people who are super broken in this system that contribute to, like, egomania and just egos flaring and arguing and all this just breakdown, you are half responsible. You know what I mean? You're it's not just the system's fault. We got to take some responsibility, but at the same time, we got to understand how hard it must be for certain people. I've got shit hard in my path that you might not relate to, but there's probably dark shit that you had to go through that I can't relate to. Who am I to say you can get over it? We're disconnected. No. You can't judge that like person that you call an incel on the computer. If they're toxic to you, fuck those people. Seriously, tell them to go fuck themselves. Whatever you got to do, for sure. I'm not saying, oh, feel sorry for the poor incels. What I'm saying is disconnect from that, detach and go, that poor fucking bastard, man. That sucks to be like that. By the way, fuck you, dude. Get your shit together. Like, that's where I am. It just depends on the day and what mood you're into, I guess. But as long as you're in complete disciplined control of your actions, and when you do feel reactive, you give yourself a minute to breathe. If you can, you know, if you're in a hostile situation, you can't do that, right? You'll be okay. I'm serious. I'm going to conclude here. You'll be okay. It's okay. I don't know who needs to hear this shit, but it's going to be fucking okay. Like, you're doing a good job. I know that, like, even just listening to motivational stuff or whatever, you're listening to shadow work videos. It's not because it's my video. It's because it's something that said ego and you wanted to click on it. You're going to be all right. Just take a breath, man. All right? Like, I'm telling you, I just got out of that shit. And there is peace on the other side. But you're going to have to earn that peace. That's the beauty of it. You're not going to just be demanded and handed to it. We have to earn it, unfortunately, because this is the reality. And we don't have that relationship where we don't see each other often. I'm just busy. But it's not transactional. It just feels right. I tell her, you can come over. You don't need to bring no plants, man. You don't bring any plants. You just come over and hang out. But because we have such abundance in those areas, it's fun to share with other people that are as equally passionate and benefit. Plants make us feel happy. Get plants. Get into plants if you're not. They help. They are amazing. Energetically, your air quality will be clean. If it's really hot and humid in your environment, it will be cooler because they suck in all the moisture from the air. All of these different things, man. My little house is like a little mini paradise for me. And I'm in my own little vortex, motherfucker, man. I'm serious. I'm like, fuck all this shit going on in the world. But I'm not like ignoring it completely. But I don't need to sit there and sit in a dark corner shaking and rocking back and forth because the world's going to end. I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that because I know it's going to be all right. So I hope you guys have a fabulous week. And I will see you next episode. And thank you so much for liking, subscribing, checking out the Clips channel, and checking out everything else that I have on my socials. I appreciate the support. And I want to let you know, those of you who are everywhere, I appreciate the support a lot. I see your beautiful faces and it's really kind. So thank you. Take care, guys. That's all I got to say.